And do you get do they also, does the fire department also do its own regular checks?
It's more driven by complaints.
Interesting, so it's more reactive.
They do an inspection on an annual basis, but they don't necessarily go around the district on a regular basis.
So interestingly, on the complaints, the majority of even the noise complaints seem to be from construction.
Yes.
So I know we've been going through, since I've been chair of the board or even on the board for the past 10 years, some very major construction projects throughout the entire district. And on this side, it strikes me that it's not so much, your work with the contractors is not so much driven by complaints, although we receive a fair amount of noise complaints. You get a real good jump start on the construction projects. I think it would be interesting to people to know how the community board interfaces with contractors, how that works.
Well, we have a good relationship with contractors. Most of them know who we are.
Welcome. This is Community Board 11. Task Force presents Youth and Violence. I'm your host, Nina Saxon, who's also a part of the Community Board 11 Youth and Education Committee. And here with me are my young people from El Barrio, from East Harlem. And they're here going to talk about the youth violence that's going on in East Harlem.
The young people today don't have any guidance. They don't have any leaders. They out there by themselves. And all they see on TV is violence. They grow up in the violence, and I believe if we have more role models for them, maybe they can, have a different direction to go in life. It's very hard out there. Times are hard right now. There's not enough big brothers, there's not enough big sisters. There's not enough programs right now for the youth right now. And with that being said, it's very hard for them to not go, in the right direction, because all they around is negativity. So that's what's going on in the youth, and I believe that we should do something about it before it be too late.
Well, I think that the reason why it's very violent out here is because there's not a lot of things to do. A lot of kids it's either they're in the house bored or they're in the street, and when you're in the street, all it takes is for that one person to say something and everybody does it. And it's very easy to access a weapon nowadays.
A lack of education, feeling the need of having to have respect upon their peers and having to fit in, that they just automatically become, it becomes a family for them. So violence is all they know. They become violent. They do what they see, like Devin said, and it's crazy, it's horrible. It has to be a change.
Yes, not only that, I really think we need more programs with nothing to do. It's like violence is the easiest thing to do. So we need more programs, more after-school programs to keep the kids off the street, and something like what they really like. If we have what they like to do, things like that, we'll keep them involved with their program instead of off the streets like that. So, I mean, there's nothing to do really.
It's funny that y'all say that, because Marion Wright Edelman, who is the founder of the Children's Defense Fund, wrote a report a while back called Cradle Pipeline to Prison. And basically in this report she talks about if a child is brought up in the life of poverty, certain things is going to happen to them. Whether they're either going to be in prison because they live in a low economic area, not good health care, not quality education. So my question, into respect of the Cradle Pipeline to Prison, and where in East Harlem, where young people are at now, where do you think the education comes into play? Do you think that we have quality education in East Harlem? Do you think our young people are being fall behind the cracks because it's not really good educators in East Harlem?
Well, education comes from home first. And even with the good school systems and the new charter schools, the charter schools only work from a certain time. The parent still at home has to educate the child. And these charter schools are only the past 5 years. So the parents are using the education that they had that might have been poor prior. So they can't give the child the fundamentals that they need. And then some parents are saying that, they send their child to after school and the homework should be done there. No, we can assist and help, but you still at home, you check, you go over it, and you teach your child. They don't go to school. They go to school to learn what you didn't teach them already, not just to learn everything there. And that's a big issue too, because it starts at home with the family, not just the school base.
I am Community Board 11's housing chair, so we're going to do our first installment on housing. Today we have Diego Quinones from Community Voices Heard and Emily Goldstein from Tenants and Neighbors. We'll talk about, we're going to get right into the meat of what's going on in housing up in East Harlem. Community Board 11 serves East Harlem. So we're going to get right into the meat of everything that's happening with predatory equity and some of the predatory developers that are operating up here in East Harlem. For those of you who don't know what predatory equity is, we're going to bring you up to speed on what predatory equity is, and then we're gonna give you some remedies on how we're combating it in Community Board 11 East Harlem, El Barrio.
What we're talking about is a phenomenon that's gone on in the city over the last several years and has sort of come to a head recently because of the economic downturn. Basically what happened is similar to what people are familiar with in the single-family mortgage crisis. Speculators and companies backed by Wall Street money, which are called private equity companies, came into New York City and started buying up affordable housing, and that includes rent-stabilized housing, Mitchell-Lama buildings, project-based Section 8 buildings, all over the city. We have this in all 5 boroughs. And buying these buildings at ridiculously high prices, at prices that the rental income from the buildings couldn't possibly support. So you have a situation where these new landlords have mortgages that can't be paid by the income from the buildings. It sort of rolled along for a while with more and more buildings falling under this system because there was sort of infinite money out there floating around. Now that there's not endless money rolling around, and now that the banks are sort of tightening the credit back up, the owners can't continue to refinance these loans, and the buildings are becoming noticeably, are noticing problems that result from this. There's several ways that this has started to impact tenants. One of them is that in some buildings, in order to try to pay their mortgages off every month, the landlords are cutting the money that they're putting into services for the building, and so tenants are seeing a decline in services, a decline in conditions. In some buildings, in order to try to raise rents and therefore get more money out of the building to pay these mortgages, landlords are harassing out tenants, and so tenants are experiencing increased levels of harassment because landlords are trying to turn over their apartments. In some buildings, there's not very noticeable effects in the day-to-day lives of the tenants, and then all of a sudden, they read in the newspaper that their building is about to go into foreclosure. All over the city, we have identified about 100,000 apartments that we believe fall into this category of predatory equity or over-leveraged buildings. The common theme is that all of these buildings have debt that can't be supported by the rental income from the building, and this is because owners were being speculative when they bought these buildings, and it's because lenders, meaning banks, were being incredibly irresponsible in giving loans that anyone looking at the numbers could see didn't pan out.
I just want to make one more announcement in this day of fiscal poverty, and it has hit us all. Not too long ago, I proposed something to some of our CBOs here in East Harlem, that if we could find a way to collaborate and donate some hours of programming to the youth and the families of East Harlem, what a wonderful thing that would be. I come from the generation that did a lot of donating of time. There was a barter system in place. Even if it's a few hours a day, maybe we can have something like checkers in the park, double Dutch competitions, blowing bubbles in the air with a soap mixture. So I urge all of you, if you would like to join in on a brainstorming session, we're holding a meeting this Thursday, the 17th at 3 o'clock at the Children's Aid Society. Mr. Giordano has made his site available to host this meeting. We'd love to hear from all of you, all who are interested. Yes?
Can people that would like to be there but are working, can you create the opportunity for people to call in?
Yes, and you can send a rep. You can send a rep.
Even if you're, they're all working.
Sure.
There's people that can participate, but we should.
Sure. I mean, right now I'm acting as the lead on this, but I want this to be something homegrown. I want this for East Harlem, and it would be a wonderful way of us securing some time for our young people. Maybe get them off the streets and enjoy open air again with the entire family.